Okay, let's finish up this week with a few of your readers' questions. Thank you very much for sending them in, as always. First one from Adam is about Farrell, and it's, is Farrell's goal kicking becoming an issue, which we sort of touched on earlier, but more sort of broader. Has Borthwick backed himself into a corner by naming him captain? Should Borthwick look to change the captain ahead of the World Cup? And who would the other options actually be as captain away from Farrell? Charlie, if I come to you first, are we sort of hitched to Owen Farrell, do you think, until the World Cup now?
Oh, first part of the question, yes. We touched on that earlier, didn't we? Goal kicking is certainly an issue. I've got a bit of a theory on this. Whenever they've spoken about leaders, they have obviously heaped praise on Farrell, but they've also spoken about the leadership density, inverted commas, and said that they come as a trio of leaders with Ellis Genge and Courtney Lawes. I wonder whether he revisits, that gives him the out to revisit it ahead of the World Cup. If, say, for instance, George Ford returns, looks excellent. I think Farrell will always be, certainly in the lead up to the World Cup, will always be in a best 23 for England now. Certainly because he can cover 12 if they want that and want a fast kind of expansive finish to a game. But if somebody like Ellis Genge Ellis Genge and Courtney Lawes are those designated vice captains, aren't they? And if you've got them there doing that, and they clearly value them because they're bigging them up as a three the whole time, then you have that scope to change it within a tournament. So there are options there, and they've sort of foreshadowed it, I think.
Charles, how do you feel about Farrell? Do you think that he will be, when's that first game, the World Cup down in Marseille against Argentina? Is he the one who's leading them out?
Yeah, I think so. I think he is the preeminent leader in English rugby and in this England team. Yeah, he didn't have his best game on Saturday, but I think everyone's allowed a bit of an off day. People always talk about a lot of the unseen stuff with Farrell and how he's a tone setter, the rhythm setter of the team, and nobody has anything but high praise for him. Whoever's coached him, whoever's played with him, you never hear a bad word said about him in terms of his drive and his character and his competitiveness. And we know he has the skills. Because he's been a part of some of England's greatest wins in the last 10 years since he made his debut, greatest ever wins that have occurred in the past 10 years. He's been excellent for Saracens this season. Anyone who's watched Saracens regularly will concur. So yeah, I think he'll be captain come the first game, and I think on balance he deserves it. And he's got two massive games here to set the doubters straight in the final two rounds against the best two teams in the world.
That's a really good point, actually, because if these two facing these two teams back to back, it's a sort of rigorous examination of everybody in this side, but particularly the leadership, and who knows whether Courtney Lawes might come back into the starting team. But yeah, I think Farrell's really going to be under the microscope. I also think he will be captain, but I am still sort of fascinated with what an Ellis Genge led England might have looked like, and I sort of wish that we'd at least had a look at it during the Six Nations period, but partly just because of the Genge and Borthwick connection from their time at Leicester and what a success that was. I do, part of me still wonders about that, especially because Genge is such an automatic starter. Like, I feel like I think we think Farrell's going to start, but we don't know if he's going to be a 10. We don't know if he might move back to 12. Now Ford comes in. Lawes has been coming back from injury. There's sort of an unscratched itch there for me with Genge, and I wonder what that might have looked like.
Yeah, interesting. Well, we know what a Courtney Lawes England looks like. He's had a little bit of time at the helm there. Yeah, and that's they're all options, aren't they? Lawes, yeah. But obviously with Lawes, you've got the caveat that you wonder with that little spell whether he does make it through to 2023. But he looked the World Cup. Sorry, we're in 2023 now. But I mean, as far as getting through that tournament, but he came back pretty strongly. He looked pretty influential, full of energy at the weekend.
We also know what a Genge and Borthwick led side looks like, from the Leicester season, and that ended in a rank triumph, frankly.
Yeah, I think that's why it intrigues me. I think also it's worth adding on Farrell that Farrell I think we've all accepted at this point, will be valued higher by teammates and coaches around him than he will be by the wider public. And actually, his stock is just so much higher.
What was the
inside the camp than outside?
The pub you were in, were they hating him?
Oh, there was an effigy of Farrell in the corner. No, no, I think it was more. He's missed another one. Grumble, grumble.
But in phase play,
on.
because I've seen a lot of kind of criticism of his phase play too, which I didn't think was.
I mean, it wasn't awful.
No.
It wasn't awful, but he's not Finn Russell. And I think that is probably it, isn't it? Sort of the perspective shifts. People just want the flashier player. But stuff like, you raised a very good point in a tweet on Sunday that actually, how many tackles did he make? 17 tackles.
17.
I don't think he gets enough credit for the defensive work he puts in either. And that is just as big an aspect of the game as the attack if you want to win test matches, even if it's not as fun.